Hare Krishna. It doesn't come out. Yeah. That's good. Vishnu Chitta's not here. Shall I sing Jai Radha Madhava or not? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandan Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana 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 Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jai Jaya Gurudev, Gurudev. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pradishgacharya Shtotharjata Shri Shrimad Srila Abhay Chanararinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Thakur Haridas Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai Vana Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Rani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Iskan BBT Samsthapak Acharya Ki Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the Some devotees. All glories to the Some devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Uttaparakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopika Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Madgavira Gopala Swikuryat Kripaya Yali Tadaiva Sampayah Pitva Hrishyayus Tatpriyajanaha Kali Kalir Dharma Krishna Nama Sankirtana Krishna Shakti Bina Nahi Tara Pravartana. The fundamental religious system in the age of Kali is the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. Unless empowered by Krishna, one cannot propagate the Sankirtana movement. So I was asked to speak a little bit about Sri Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party, famous chapter in ISKCON history, and clearly a time of great empowerment by the Lord for spreading Krishna consciousness. So many books distributed. Srila Prabhupada's books, I would say, even go so far as to say that maybe the majority of the books. But as we heard this morning, it was a very tight race between Radha Damodar, and generally the chief, opponent, competitor maybe is better, was Western United States. New Vrindavan was also a big force to contend with, at least when I was on Radha Damodar. Sorry? Chicago, yeah. I mean, I have personal experience with that. I can relate a little bit. But Tamal Krishna Goswami wanted really badly to preach in America. And Srila Prabhupada, of course, needed expert managers in India, where he was just getting started, for fledgling projects in every major center. And during Prabhupada's time, the major preaching in India was based in Mumbai and Mayapur and Delhi. Later on, he built a temple in Hyderabad as well. But so he was very hesitant to let Tamal Krishna Goswami join his old friend, Vishnu Jan Maharaj, in America for preaching. Didn't really have anyone to replace him in India. But he was determined. Everyone who knows Tamal Krishna Goswami knows he was nothing if not determined. So somehow or other he was able to come back and formulate this party. Actually, the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party we were discussing this morning went through various stages. The very beginning of that party was actually Kirtan Ananda Maharaj, who had the deities somehow or other. I don't know that early history because I wasn't there, but and they were traveling in a Volkswagen bus, was it? Radha Damodar. That was their first bus. So then this is another chapter of the Radha Damodar history when Tamal Krishna Goswami and Vishnujan Maharaj joined up. Actually, I didn't join Radha Damodar party until the very end. I think Brigupati Prabhu was before me. Gaurdas is not here. I don't know if he was ever on the party or not. Was he? Do you know? Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, there was a kind of a lot of people came and went from that party, and it went through various forms. But when I joined, it was the end of the Radha Damodar Vilas, as Vyasaki Prabhu calls it, pastimes that Radha Damodar performed in this material world. When the Lord comes, he chooses what he's going to do, and in his own inconceivable way, that's what he does. And somehow or other, these two deities, Radharani and Damodar, they decided to come to America. In the 1970s, there were no Telugu people preceding them at that time, or at least not very many. It was a different situation then. Nobody had ever even heard practically of Krishna consciousness in the West. They thought that Krishna consciousness was some newfangled cult that was brainwashing impressionable young teenagers so that they could make some big cult leader wealthy. That's what people thought, at best. And at worst, they thought that, maybe we were engaged in satanic rituals of some sort, or, sacrificing animals, or worse. So nobody had a clue as to what ISKCON was, as to what Gaudiya Vaishnavism was, what Hare Krishna movement. Nobody had any idea. This was at this point that I joined. And actually, I was trying to join for a long time, but they kept sending me home because I was underage. I was attracted to Krishna consciousness from my early teens, and I wasn't able to join until I was 15. And the devotees in Los Angeles, where I was born and raised, they had different ideas about what to do with me. Danavir Maharaj was just starting his Bhakta program, and he had received Prabhupada's blessings for that. And so he was the right wing of those devotees, and he was preaching that you should stay in school, you should be responsible, learn how to drive, do all the things that an American teenager does. And then when you're old enough, 18, legal age in America, then you can join. On the other hand, the left-wing devotees, they were headed largely by Nalini Kanta, who was the Los Angeles temple commander in those days. They were saying, no, this is human form of life. We don't know how long Prabhupada is going to be on this planet. You have to take advantage of this now. You have to join now. You can join one of our traveling buses, and nobody will ever know where you are. So I was less impressionable at age 15 than I was determined. But somehow or other, that's what I chose to do. They put me on an overnight flight from New York, illicit flight from New York, from Los Angeles, to New York. And I ended up in Manhattan Temple. Then that was a buzzing beehive of spiritual activity in those days as well, and Prabhupada was very happy with that location. But the atmosphere was just too hot legally, because there were some court cases, actually, of people just like me who had been completely enthused by Krishna consciousness and wanted to give their lives to Lord Krishna at an age that was just deemed too young. So they decided to send me to their nearby farm community in Pennsylvania. Does anybody know what that's called? It's called Gita Nagari now, but in those days it was called New Varshana. And the only persons there, as I recall, were my godbrother Paramananda and his wife Satyabhama, and there was a Devaki Nandan there, and several others. Vamanadev every once in a while would come. But anyway, there I was in Pennsylvania at age 15 picking potatoes. And one day, 3 sannyasis came to that place. Their names were Guru Kripa Swami, Drishtajumna Swami, a young Swami, and Tamal Krishna Goswami. And this was in September, I think, of 1976, and that's close enough to December that you can guess what was on their minds. They were making preparations for the biggest Sankirtan marathon ever. Every December, we used to call it the Christmas Marathon. And so they were completely on the lookout for any available brahmachari. And I was, of course, very eager to join that party. Who wasn't? There was an ad in the Back to Godhead magazine, travel the country, associate with senior sannyasi disciples of Srila Prabhupada, hear and chant about Krishna, distribute books. Everybody would wanted to do such a thing. So I was ready, and they took me to Memphis, Tennessee. There was a big, what we would call maybe powwow, or a big meeting, convention of all the Radha Damodar party, the entire party. In those days, it was, not by 1976, it was 6 buses, 6 big Greyhound buses, and each bus had a small fleet of vans attached to it as satellites. So every 6 buses and maybe 3-4 vans, 5-6 vans in some cases, they all converged in one dilapidated old house in an industrial section of Memphis, Tennessee. No doubt it was rented there because it was probably the cheapest thing they could find. And it turned out to be the cheapest house that you could imagine also. Anyway, so for some time, these devotees were all converged, and there were six Greyhound buses parked in this street outside this house, and vans as far as the eye could see. And when the windows were open, you could see little thin orange flags hanging from every window. And I mean, by the time that meeting was finished and the buses had all pulled out, they left a trench that was maybe 2 feet deep in the driveway, which was mud. It was an unpaved driveway. And there was a 2-foot deep trench in that driveway. But that wasn't the worst of it. After having ecstatic kirtans and big meeting planning how to spread Krishna consciousness, who was there? Tripurari Swami, he had just taken sannyas, and Drishtajumna Swami, also another one, and of course Tamal Krishna Goswami, Keshava Bharati Prabhu. In those days, they used to call him the White Danda, because although he was a grahastha, he was always on the road preaching and enlivening so many with his unique style. So, and many other devotees, some still here among us. So, were you there? You were there in Memphis, right? So, including Brigupati Prabhu. So the kirtans were so ecstatic that something like the kirtans here, actually, one feature of this particular project here in Atlanta Krishna Life in 2023 is that it exactly resembles the spirit of that party. The form is a little different, but the color is mostly the same, and the spirit is definitely there. So it was with the kind of enthusiasm that we see in Mahotsaha Prabhu every Mangalarti that devotees used to dance. I remember Vaisheshika, he was also, I think, a teenager in those days. He's not that far ahead of me, but by the 4th verse of Guruvashtaka, he just could not contain his enthusiasm anymore, and he just started wildly dancing like a bucking bronco, just, arms and legs flailing everywhere, and Vaisheshika smile, and anybody knows Vaisheshika. Everybody just got enlivened like this. The whole kirtan just exploded into ecstasy of devotees who are completely dedicated to Sankirtan and completely enlivened by each other's association in that environment. You can imagine. Maybe it was how many people there? At least 150, maybe 200 brahmacharis, all going at once. And I remember every morning, pretty much every morning, after Mangalarti, by the time Narsingha prayers stopped and you could hear something, they would hear banging on the front door because it was the police. Pretty much every morning the police would have to come there and settle us down because the enthusiasm was so strong. There was one, actually I spoke too soon. There was one couple from Andhra Pradesh, householder couple, somehow or other do you remember them? Lakshmi Narsingha was his name. And when he told the devotees his name, they all just, Jai! 150 devotees all at once. So I don't know how they tolerated the extreme youthful exuberance, but somehow or other they were taking part also. Anyway, one morning the kirtan was so ecstatic, I don't know, maybe it wasn't more, I don't know, one of those kirtans was so ecstatic. I mean, all of those kirtans were so ecstatic that the floor was kind of moving up and down every time people would jump. And one of them got so intense that the floor actually gave way. And my godbrother Rangaji fell through the floor onto the first floor. He wasn't hurt, but it was a big shock for a lot of people, especially the landlord. I don't know how they ever resolved that, but we were gone. At least I was gone before we found out. So anyway, as I said, the buses pulled out. The whole thing was over. The strategy for that Sankirtan season was planned, and all those buses dispersed. They all went their various ways. And in those days, we used to generally, when traveling, we would stay in KOA. Does anybody know what a KOA campground is? Campground of America, but the acronym was KOA. And so the buses would pull into those places. Now, by 1976, late 1976, we had amassed sufficient notoriety among the proprietors of those KOA campgrounds that sometimes they wouldn't let us in at all. But if there was some new member of that staff who didn't realize what was happening, they would allow us to stay. So I remember staying in KOA campgrounds like that. And I spent the winter that year in Raleigh, Durham area, Chapel Hill area, North Carolina. We were in a KOA, I believe it was in Chapel Hill. And our program was that we would rise early as always. Now this is approaching winter. This was maybe by this time October, because we had gone to New Orleans and somewhere else first. But it was getting quite cold. And in fact, by December of that year, it was freezing. And the whole place was covered with snow. And still, we got up and we took our shower. Generally, we used to take our shower in the KOA campgrounds. Now, I remember one KOA campground, even by the time I got to the shower, it was hard to describe the mess that the devotees had left it in, because there was mud. I think it was raining outside maybe, and so everything was complete mud. If you went into that bathroom, you would not be able to come out clean, even if you just exited the shower. So it was a real mess, and devotees left their gamchas and their kopines everywhere, and just a total mess. And so that's why the KOA people didn't really enjoy us coming to grace their presence with the deities of Sri Sri Radha Damodara. But so anyway, sometimes we had to rough it. And one, I think must have been in the winter in Chapel Hill at one such KOA. We found out that the pipes had frozen in the KOA campground bathrooms. And so I was on Sri Sri Radha Damodar's bus. That was the main bus. And I was with, at that time, Drishtaduna Swami and Tripuradari Swami together. They were on that bus. Every other leaders had different buses. You were on Brahma's bus, right? Yeah, so Gopi Jana Vallabha, another god brother, he had a bus. And Janardhan, I think, maybe had his own bus. And so in this way, there were many different buses. And anyway, so in this KOA campground, the pipes had frozen. So Drishtadyumna Maharaj told the brahmacharis, that's okay. You just go, there's a swimming pool in the campground. You can go and take your shower there. But we had to break the ice covering the swimming pool first. Then we had these gallon jugs that you get of milk, plastic. We would cut off the top of that and scoop this freezing cold chlorine water at 3 o'clock in the morning in December in 1976. And we would pour that over our bodies and take our holy bath in this way. Then we would go to Mangalarti in the bus. I remember that winter, later on, I think it was in Cincinnati, Ohio, it was about 13 degrees, either positive or negative, I don't remember which one, but it was cold. It was very cold and freezing. And the policy on Radha Damodar was so extreme that we were out on the parking lots where we used to distribute books in those days, chiefly, at least that's where I went. The really big book distributors went to the airports. That's another division of Radha Damodar history. But I was never part of that because I wasn't particularly good at selling. So I was on the parking lots, and most of the grunts, as you would say, they were on the parking lots. But they would drop us off at 7 in the morning, and you would not come back until 7 p.m. 12-hour days on Sankirtana, and in freezing weather. And so that year I actually got frostbite on my hands. It was pretty extreme. And they would pack lunch for us, a small plastic bag maybe of halwa or maybe some upma or something. And that's what you had. After an early breakfast at maybe 6:30 a.m. You're jump in the van, and then to fight the mind, the Sankirtan leader would just adopt his most authoritarian voice that he could and say, jump. They would open the door of the van and jump like a paratrooper. And they would drop us off on the parking lots, and we were on our own all day to fend with the material energy and to fend with our minds and to deal with all kinds of challenges that would come. Anything. Those of you, you're performing Sankirtan, you know anything. The material energy can throw anything at you. And I would imagine it's a lot more colorful now in 2023 than it was even in 1976. I don't know because I'm in India now, but yeah, it was really quite an experience, especially for a 15-year-old. One time I was going door to door, as we used to call it. We would go to shops also, and we would try and distribute there. So I was in Louisville, Kentucky, great center of Radha Damodar history in my experience. And we were going in downtown Louisville, Kentucky. So all different kinds of places were there. So I walked into one place, and it seemed to be like a movie theater, but we didn't care in those days because we were seeing everyone as spirit souls, whether they were in the form of policemen or in the form of gas station attendants or theater, managers, or anybody would get a book. Anybody, anywhere, anytime, anyway. Jare deke tare kaha, Krishna Upadesh. We were very strictly abiding by that order as best as we could. So I walked into this movie theater, and I asked permission from the person sitting at the cashier, and I said, can I distribute these books? And the person didn't look like they were very professional at all. Yeah. So I went. Yeah, it needs to come up a little bit. Only when I got into the movie theater, then I realized what kind of movie they were showing there. So that was a shock. I was only 15. Another similar experience, I was also in Louisville, Kentucky. This time I was in some store parking lot. And a young girl, I was giving her a book and explaining a little bit about the philosophy as we try to do this very quickly, as you know. We don't want to waste time. But she just was apparently very sincere and told me that, but I don't have any money. The only thing I can give is me. So these kinds of things can happen. In other places, There was one, I think it was a gas station, what do you call it? Rest stops, truck stops. Sometimes we would go to those places in order to take a shower. Why would we go and take showers in places like that? Because hotels were Maya. And spending Krishna's Lakshmi on hotels was also Maya. That was the thought in those days. So, sometimes we would take our baths in rivers. If there were many times I've taken baths in the rivers of places, clean rivers, in places like Iowa, and the parts of the country that are not so spoiled with pollution. Anyway, so we went into one such truck stop to take our baths, and this man had evidently been visited before by Radha Damodar buses, because he came running out of his store with a tire iron and said, he was shouting at the top of his lungs, and he said, "I told you if I ever saw you again, I was going to kill you." So the devotees got back in the van very quickly and exited just in time to miss the tire iron as it was thrown at the back window of the van. But there were very positive encounters as well. As I said, everything under the sun you have to encounter when you're on Sankirtana. You all know this, I'm sure, because you're experiencing it daily. So sometimes people would come and they would get a book and they would come back a half an hour later and say, you just saved my life because I was going to kill myself until I read these words of your spiritual master. And sometimes they were ready to join on the spot, and they did, especially if they were taken back to the bus in the earlier days and they had spoken to Tamal Krishna Goswami or Vishnu Jan Swami, or better yet, the combination of both, because they had like a good cop, bad cop routine, that Vishnu Jan would just drown them in nectar such that they could not resist it, and Tamal Krishna Goswami would humble them out and push on them such they could hardly withstand it. But that combination was very effective, and it actually made many, many people devotees. There were many people who would just happen to be walking by the bus and hearing some kirtan going on and just, came to inquire, what is this all about? And they said, "Oh, come on, we'll explain." As soon as they stepped on the bus, they never stepped off the bus until they stepped into a temple. That was the power of Tamal Krishna Goswami in particular. Was very good at this. One-on-one, nobody stood a chance. He was so empathetic that he could immediately suss out within about 2 minutes where a person was coming from. What was his adhikar? What was his level of faith? What were his material desires? What were his socioeconomic background? And how deep was his sincerity? He could see these things very, very quickly, and he was intelligent enough that he would adjust his presentation accordingly. I think he himself explains in Servant of the Servant, a copy of which I could not find this morning. But if there was they used to set up on university campuses also, public property. Many times the universities didn't really want us there because they knew what we were doing, but they couldn't really get rid of us because it was completely legal. But still they would harass us. Anyway, Tamal Krishna Goswami was such a determined preacher and was really, really eager to make devotees. And so he would, if he saw anybody that was responding positively to the kirtan, then he would zero in on that person like a heat-seeking missile. And he would just ask them questions very nonchalantly in the beginning. And, how are you doing? Tell me about yourself. And, the person would say, "Well, yeah, I'm in my final year, and I've got a bright future ahead of me, and my parents have high expectations, and I'm going to be an engineer, and, all this like this." And then he said, "Oh, great." He said, "Step over here and try some food." Then if he saw another person who was saying, "Well, I don't really know what I'm doing. I mean, my parents told me to come to college, and I don't see why, because what is the point of this rat race? And, I'm just confused about life." And they said, "Okay, well, let's have a seat. Let's talk about this." And then they would, and invariably that person would, at the very least, he would be moved to adopt some practice of Krishna consciousness, but quite often he would join. How many people join that party in this way? I don't know. I mean, do you know? Can you name some names? Govinda Dutt was one such person. Gauridas Pandit. Divyanga. I mean, so many names. And these devotees are still around. And yeah, so, you know, the potency of this Sankirtan process, the potency of our Sampradaya, the potency of Prabhupada's blessings, they enabled these kinds of miraculous things. And this was in an age in North American history when people thought that we were cult, we were some kind of thugs or something, we were out to do human sacrifice or something. People didn't have any clue as to what we were doing. Once in New Orleans, they were staying in a Motel 6 for some reason. On rare occasions, they would stay at Motel 6. I don't think Motel 6 exists anymore, but there was a motel chain called Motel 6. Why was it called Motel 6? Because you would pay $6 to stay there for one night. So you can imagine, what do you get for $6? Even in those days. Now, the brahmacharis of Radha Damodar, they were so staunch and so opposed to any kind of material infection in their neophyte minds that they would just immediately, as soon as they would go into a hotel room, they would take the sheets off the bed and put them on the floor so that they didn't have to contact the Muchi carpet, because Prabhupada didn't like carpets like this, soaked in the sweat of so many faithful persons before us. That's enough to say. But so anyway, the devotees had these sheets on the floor, and they would cook one big pot of khichdi for the whole van. And they would do so on a hot plate. A little, you know, you just plug it in, and it's got one single electric coil, and it heats up sufficiently that you can cook one pot of khichdi if you know how to do that. So they were doing this. And of course, the mirrors were also Maya, because brahmacharis don't want to look at themselves and be vain. So they would cover that with a Harinam chadar. And so one such morning, the devotee was cooking khichdi. All the devotees were sitting on the floor because chairs were also Maya. And they were chanting their japa at full steam. And this devotee was cooking a pot of khichdi. And pretty soon it would be Guru Puja and the Srimad Bhagavatam. But for now, early in the morning, this was their program. They were chanting japa. The hot plate that this devotee was using somehow shorted out the circuit for the entire floor of the hotel. And no doubt other guests who were arriving by this time, they must have complained to the front desk. So they were coming door after door, checking to see what's going on. Who's doing this? So they finally came to the door where the devotees were, and the devotees had the door locked with one of those chain locks. But the maid opened the door enough that she could see in. This is New Orleans, mind you. Anybody here been to New Orleans? You know what the spirit of that city is? It's a very tamasic place. Lots of very weird stuff happens there. I mean, as soon as I felt it myself, actually, because after Memphis, we just drove down that highway that runs into Louisiana, straight shot all the way down, and we came to New Orleans. And as soon as we entered that city, there was just this deathly aura about the place. And apparently cemeteries everywhere. That was my first impression. Just really, really tamasic energy. Yeah, so this maid opens the door, and she peeks her head in, and she sees there's a candle burning because the electricity was out. And there's all these bald guys wearing, you know, strange robes, and the sheets are all strange, and there's something covering the mirrors, and they're all going. And she just freaked out. She couldn't. What is this? She just thought, oh my God, they're doing voodoo in there. So that she slammed the door and went to tell the management. This kind of thing was the kind of adventure that enlivened the minds of the devotees, who were largely either under 20 years old or in their early 20s at that time. So, you know, we had all these different kinds of experiences. And it was always a new experience, because every few days we were moving on and performing the same Sankirtan Yajna in various places all over this country. Very, very, very austere, as I've said some things already. We heard from Bhakti Vikas Swami the other day. It's not that Radha Damodar party was really unique in that way, because they were doing extreme austerities in England, as he described. And we were talking this morning. It brought to mind our god brother Surabhi, who Prabhupada loved very much and whom Prabhupada pushed very much in Vrindavan to build that temple. Actually, he wasn't an architect. He was only a draftsman. But Prabhupada called him an architect, treated him like an architect, and engaged him like an architect. And so he had to design a temple and build it. And he did. And he was never, Prabhupada was apparently never satisfied with his work. Prabhupada was constantly only chastising him. Some devotees really got that treatment from Prabhupada. Tamal Krishna Goswami was another one that Prabhupada was constantly just squeezing and pushing and chastising and humiliating. Some of us have that fate, some of us didn't. But anyway, he was explaining how when they were building the Vrindavan temple, kind of like Mayapur, they had to sleep outside, and they just a little, what we call in India, jhompadi. That means like a thatch hut, no protection really against the elements or the creatures, because there were many small creatures there. Rodents nibbling at their feet in Mumbai, Giridhar Swami. So Surabhi woke up one night, and he opened his eyes, and he was about 6 inches from the face was a king cobra looking back at him. So it's not like, Radha Damodar was only the austere party, but it was very austere, as I said. 7 in the morning to 7 at night, you were performing Sankirtan. If you were lucky, sometimes they would drop off a little extra prasadam for you. Chota Haridas, remember him? He was our cook. He was constantly working very hard. How hard? He had a kitchen that was the size of a small closet, very small closet, and that was the size of his kitchen. And he was cooking for maybe up to 30 men at a time on a bus, and sometimes while the bus is moving down the highway. Actually, one time on that trip from Memphis to New Orleans that year, in 1976, the bus was moving down the highway, and somehow or other they were towing an Airstream trailer. Tripurari Swami was in that trailer, I think, and somehow there was some, I don't know what happened, because we were following behind in a van. But you remember this? So I don't know what happened, but suddenly we just saw this Airstream van. It looks like a big chrome bubble. That's how they were built. I don't think they have them anymore. But suddenly this thing just turned over and ended up in the middle lawn dividing the 2 lanes of the freeway. And it was a big scene, and there were harmoniums all over the street, and books everywhere, and just devotees bewildered, and I don't know what happened, but it seemed as if something just exploded, and it was a huge mess. So we had to go through that. But anyways, as I said, we made it to New Orleans, and we were doing Sankirtana there, and just everywhere we went, it was a different adventure. So, what else? I was always not so good at the big book distribution, and my forte was BTG magazines. And at that time, Mother Karana, the wife of Dharmapran, right? She was one of the biggest distributors in the movement. She was also distributing large amounts of BTG magazines. I was also distributing large amounts of BTG magazines. We were doing this at traffic lights, not the best for your lungs, but all day at traffic lights, and we were distributing many hundreds of BTG magazines. At least that's what I was doing. So she and I were in competition, but nobody knew this, because the system of reporting scores is not new. It's been going on for a long time. Sometimes you distribute more than anyone else in the world, but you don't get credit for it because it's political, largely. or something. But anyway, I remember that. And then one time, I was actually initiated in Cincinnati, Ohio, in absentia, because actually the initiation ceremony was performed in Mayapur of 1977, Mayapur Festival. But only a couple of months later, on Ram Navami, we had a festival in Cincinnati, Ohio, where we were also staying in the house of one Garg family. If you don't know the Gargs, they're descendants of Gargamuni, famous from Krishna book, Brahmins. And they just loved Radha Damodar, this family. And they loved all the devotees, because through all the craziness, they were wise enough to see what we were doing was actually selfless, and we were propagating their own faith. The Gargs generally are from Mathura area still. So they were very kind, and we had many, many programs there. That's where I was initiated, along with Mayapur Dham, Jiva Pavana, Dayalu. Who else? There was one other person, Purnachandra. And they're all gone, as far as I know. Maybe Jiva Pavana is still around, but I think he joined Gaudiya Math. So, he's still in England? Okay, so, yeah, so that gives you a little bit of an indication about how seriously you should take, what's happening around you right now, here and now, that the immediate circumstance is not that significant in the ultimate view. And given the eternal scope of time, what you're doing right now is great, but are you going to be doing it in 50 years, as we heard this morning? And what does it take to maintain that kind of faith and determination? That's what you should use this brahmachari ashram for cultivating, the really, really deep things that sustain us in Krishna consciousness. The things that Krishna is indicating when he says, Yesham tvantagatam papam jananam punyakarmanam te dvanvamoha nirmukta bhajante mam dridha vrataha. He says persons who are pious now and were pious in the past, they can sustain a mature commitment to Krishna consciousness. And many, many members of the Radha Damodar party, they left. I don't know where they all went, and some of them are, of course, they passed away from this world. But many are still here. Another great soul is Sunanda, who hopefully will come here in a week or so, Sunanda Prabhu. Famous as a cook on Radha Damodar. Famous more recently as a collector for the TOVP project. Wonderful kirtan singer. If you hear his kirtan, you're lucky, because it sounds just like Vishnu Jan Swami, exactly. You hear this recording of Srila Prabhupada playing the mridanga and Vishnu Jan Swami singing that melody, morning tune. That is exactly how Sunanda sings every morning at Mangalartik. At least that's been my experience. So you're in for a great treat if he comes here along with Jananivas Prabhu. So, yeah, who else? All different kinds of devotees were there, and we all did different kinds of things, but we were all dedicated to Srila Prabhupada's, fulfilling Srila Prabhupada's desire. And we were pushed also and directed and inspired by Tamal Krishna Goswami, for whom the members of that party had so much respect. Tamal Krishna Goswami had his personal idiosyncrasies. One Dallas Morning Times reporter who came to interview him one time described him as imperious. And he could be like that. And just a glance from him, the wrong kind of glance from him, could really, really move you to action. What to speak of his words, which could be very sharp as well. But because they saw how much he was devoted to Srila Prabhupada and how much he was pushing what Prabhupada really loved for us to do. Everyone on the party had great respect for him, so much so that everyone on the party generally imitated him. Tamal Krishna Goswami, if he bought a Bagalbandi coat, everybody on the party bought it. If he wore his vest in a certain way, he and Vishnu Jan, everyone else on the party would also do likewise. He had this habit of covering the phones. In those days, they had phone booths. We didn't have cell phones. There were public phone booths, a little glass box that you step into in a public place, and you make your phone call. he was always covering that with his upper cloth before speaking, because he was very conscious of germs, and he was very conscientious that I have to do such a tremendous degree of service for Srila Prabhupada, I cannot take any risk of getting sick. He hated that. And he was also preaching that disease is Maya, because a lot of the time, it's a fact. We get sick because we're careless. Srila Prabhupada said the same thing. I remember in the beginning of the pandemic, when so many people were getting infected, people who were not wearing their masks or whatever, I was hearing Srila Prabhupada's voice in that way. But anyway, he had these idiosyncrasies, and whatever he did, whatever standards he set, that the whole party followed. So it was very much dominated by him. Vishnujan Swami had left this world, we think. He just disappeared. Nobody really knows. But that was just before I joined Radha Damodar. Before that, I was in San Diego. But so this was my experience on Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. Just a few things that I can recall offhand. All different kinds of experiences. Sometimes we would get left out on the parking lot. The person who was supposed to pick you up at the appointed time and appointed place just didn't make it for some reason. Because why? Maybe he got arrested. These things happened. I myself was arrested. My history is that I joined actually illegally. I hope it's not being taped and broadcasted. But I had actually, technically I had run away from home, although I wasn't running away from anything. Even my mother knew that I was running to something, and she knew where I was going as well. But she couldn't find me. That was my design. But I made it up to her later, don't worry. I gave her 4 or 5 years of care when she was elderly and in need. And so everything was mended. But what was I going to say? Yeah, sometimes the devotees were arrested. And I myself was also arrested when I was at this young age, maybe 15, 16, at most 17, I think 16. I was arrested for soliciting without a license. This is how they would harass us, just to make sure that we didn't come back again. They would try to make it as harsh as they possibly could. Sometimes they would even throw us in jail. So that happened to many devotees. And if you're out doing your part of the Sankirtan Yajna, doing your service, your part, cooperating and playing your role, but your van leader doesn't show up to pick you up, that's a large reason as to why. Maybe he got arrested doing the same thing that you were doing. It was like that. As I said, anything could happen. In those days, it was a lot less tolerant. Now Bhrigupati Prabhu told me that he just drives his van onto the campus at UCLA, right? And just sets up and starts distributing, and nobody says anything because the authority structures in the United States have broken down to that extent, due largely to the degradation of Kali Yuga and, through agencies, divinely accredited agencies such as Fentanyl, the Communist Party of China and other such entities. But so anyway, this happened to me one night. And so somehow or other, I was able to make a phone call to somebody on the party. And what to do? It's 10:30 at night. I'm out here in the parking lot is closed. There's nobody around anywhere. It's actually dangerous. So, they said, well, you can look up this. There was one yoga society called Ananda Marg. This happened to me in Louisville, Kentucky. You can call them up. Sometimes they let us stay there. So I called up at 10:30 at night and said, I'm a bhakti yogi, and I heard that sometimes, somehow or other I just got left out, and, can you help me out? And the lady who was running the place was very, she was bewildered and also a little bit suspicious, I would imagine, but she was kind enough to put me up for the night. And then the next morning, somebody came to pick me up. I don't know what happened, why they couldn't get me that night, but that's what happened. These kinds of things, these kinds of austerities, devotees had to undergo in order to preach Krishna consciousness, in order to put out the books the way that Prabhupada wanted those books put out. And we were fortunate to have very strong leadership, very tight, exemplary leadership also. And as I said, it was a chapter in ISKCON history that really fulfilled Srila Prabhupada's desire to have these books widely distributed throughout the world. Now, this fifth canto, chapter 18, text number 9. Does anybody know that verse? 5:18.9. Swasti astu vishwasya. You want to recite? Yeah, it means Prahlad Maharaj is praying in his noble spirit. May the whole universe be pacified. May all the demons be, may the whole universe be auspicious. May all the demons be pacified. May everyone's mind become pure so that they can think of each other's welfare. And by practicing Krishna consciousness, may we all enter more and more deeply into this spirit. Even me, he says. Matirapi ahaitaki. Even my mind is speaking as a demon. He says like this. He considered himself a demon. That's why he says that, according to commentators. So in his purport there, Srila Prabhupada is quoting or paraphrasing Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, even if you empty out the entire world of jivas by delivering them all through the Sankirtan movement, even if Mahotsaha gets that big, still, it will just keep filling up again because people make stupid choices all the time. And the universe is, there will always be conditioned souls here. There is always a need for more and more and more and more and more book distribution. So those persons who are taking on this austerity of book distribution, following in the footsteps of our august predecessors, and trying to fulfill Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mandate, as well as Srila Prabhupada's dream, they will gain the kingdom of God. They will go back to Godhead. They will get love of Godhead. They will, the blessings that will be showered upon you for dedicating your life for this purpose are unimaginable. And so many other conditioned souls will be delivered, but it is an eternal task. It's an eternal task. There's always these two categories of asuras and suras within this world, and we're working hard, the devotees on Krishna's behalf, we're working hard to pull out the suras and maybe pacify the asuras. But the asuras are also working hard to snuff us out of existence. Make no mistake about it. That is a fact. There are certain even faiths in this world who would like nothing more than to see us cease to exist. And there are even worse parties in this world who would love nothing more than to stamp out religion altogether. What to speak of ours? So we have a massive, massive task ahead of us, and it will require massive austerities that are not less than that which was performed by these devotees in Radha Damodar. And as I said, other places throughout the world, devotees worked so hard to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's desires. So, this is the glory of the Sankirtan movement. When the devotees would come together in festivals, Radha Damodar, whole party would come together from time to time. You cannot describe the ecstasy produced in those kirtans by those devotees, pure-hearted devotees who had totally dedicated everything to Srila Prabhupada. You can't describe the bliss that was produced and the feeling of camaraderie and, the sense of mission which was so strong and the depth of faith that we all shared. That there's nothing like that. I mean, I'm saying in so many words that it doesn't get any better than this. If you know how to see it through the eyes of Shastra. There was something I was going to say, but my memory isn't as strong as it once was. So anyway, this is our eternal dedication, and this is our great joy. It's our great fortune, actually, to be part of this Sankirtan movement, because it's not Not in every Kali Yuga that we have this chance, but we somehow have it in this Kali Yuga, and how it's manifesting, it's so amazing and so colorful. Srila Prabhupada called Tripurari the incarnation of book distribution. He was distributing roughly 100 books a day. That was a huge accomplishment in those days. The best of the best were able to do that. So what would Srila Prabhupada say if we can distribute 100 sets in a day or more? What is the limit? We didn't have a sense of limitation. Actually, we didn't believe that Srila Prabhupada would leave this world. I remember we didn't believe that he would ever leave, because we saw him breaking the laws of physics every single day, the way he lived. It was impossible for someone to do the things that he did. And so we thought, if he's doing other impossible things, why can't he defy death? We didn't think that he would ever go, even though he told us he would. So anyway, the point is, this, by Krishna's empowerment and by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's great mercy in the form of Srila Prabhupada's divine grace, devotees can do unthinkable things. You can reach, the sky is not the limit. I mean, you can reach beyond the sky. You can reach all the way into the spiritual sky with your ambitions and with your accomplishments, if the determination and faith is there. Several years ago, and I'll stop pretty soon, I was in Chicago, and I visited one devotee who is taking care of the house of Radhanath Swami. He's a householder. I think he even bought that house just to maintain it, because that was his sentiment. But he asked me a question. He said, what was the difference between ISKCON when Srila Prabhupada was here and ISKCON now? I think this was in 2017 or something. He asked me this. And so I told him that, now we have so much. We've come so far. We've distributed so many books already. We've made so many devotees. Krishna consciousness is well known. It's well respected. It's really spreading like anything in certain places around the world. Even if America looks discouraging sometimes, you should know well that it is exploding, the Sankirtana movement, especially in India where I live. And, we have very stellar people joining, the high caliber, super intelligent, professional competence, and, assets are there, properties are there. There are so many temples opening now in India. You can't even keep track of them. In Delhi alone, there are 18 temples. And I was talking to someone the other day in Andhra Pradesh, Guntur, and other places. There are at least half a dozen temples as well. And so many centers that they've uncounted. So Krishna consciousness is really spreading, and we have all this now. In those days, and the kinds of realizations that we hear from devotees, like Adikarta Prabhu this morning spoke with, as Brigupati appreciated, the wisdom of half a century of serious practice of Krishna consciousness. We will appreciate this, I think, when we ourselves are at his age, maybe. Some things are just, the T.S. Eliot said, that certain realizations are reserved for old age. But the seniors in this audience today, they appreciate the things that Adikarta Prabhu said this morning very deeply. And, we have this association now in ISKCON, elder association, that was not available to us, because Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers were actually inimical in many ways to his mission. Not only were they neutral or disinterested, they were actually inimical in many cases, and so we couldn't really take advantage of that, whatever they could teach us. But anyway, I told him like this. I said, in those days we had no money, we had no knowledge, we had no samskars, we had no realization, we had no maturity, we had no birth, we had nothing. Even our organization was not that good, except on Radha Damodar party, because TKG was managing it. He was very, very sharp. So we had nothing, and yet what we did have that is maybe lacking now is a strong faith that by surrendering to Srila Prabhupada's order, We will spread Krishna consciousness. You can't understand how difficult it is to imagine how Krishna consciousness will spread before it happens. Just like I always think of this past time when Vasudeva, all the guards fell asleep in the prison, and the doors just opened, and Vasudeva didn't know how he was going to do what he had to do, but he knew what he had to do, and he just made his best attempt, and Krishna did the rest. This is always our situation in this material world. And it's as true in 2023 as it was in 1976. If we just distribute these books, if we dedicate our lives, if we cultivate the personal purity, and we surrender to the mission of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, we will be empowered to act as their conduits. And we will see a glorious effect. Only time is separating, as Prabhupada said in the early days. Now we're seeing the thing that Srila Prabhupada envisioned on a park bench in 1965. We're seeing it. So this has to be cultivated, this depth of faith in particular. I don't know how many people nowadays outside of Christian life, well, there are very surrendered souls, I should say, but we're seeing much less of this heavy missionary spirit in ISKCON now than we saw in the 1970s. There was just a palpable buzz everywhere among the devotees that they just knew that they were going to spread Krishna consciousness, and they knew that they would be empowered because Prabhupada could do anything, and he was doing everything. So this should be our faith, and this should be our focus, that we should recognize that as long as we're very humbly and tightly connected, holding on for dear life to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and those who represent him purely, and as long as we're carrying out the clear orders that he gave for all of us, then we will be empowered to act as the conduits of his mercy, like electricity. As long as you're plugged in, the current will act. So this is how it happens. And this is how you're able to distribute so many books here. This is how you're able to follow this program. Even if there are so many challenges, there will be challenges. You should never doubt that. It's not meant to be easy. We only grow through these challenges if we're sincere. But ultimately, we have the best destination, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Paramam Gati, by Srila Prabhupada's divine grace. I should stop now because I'm rambling. But I want to thank you all for the opportunity to come here and take advantage of your association and to try to speak a few words about my own limited experience. I'm just one little tiny soul, and jiva soul, out of so many who are touched by Srila Prabhupada's divine grace. But you should understand that that divine grace will touch so many others. They're out there waiting only, just like I was. Actually, I wanted this, but I couldn't find anyone giving it. That is a fact. I was very religious from the start, and I had every intention of joining a monastery somewhere, but I couldn't find one that was free of hypocrisy. So ISKCON should not be tainted by hypocrisy. And here I don't see that. No touch of hypocrisy here. Here it's very clear. What you're doing is exactly a carbon copy of 1970s. Exactly. Even I saw someone with different color socks the other day. I mean, it's uncanny. But, Krishna will work through those who are willing to be worked through. If we're willing to be an instrument, Krishna will take you as an instrument. And that is your perfection. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything, Bhrigupati Prabhu or Adikarta Prabhu, Daneshwar Prabhu. Yes, please. Which one? Adikarta?
Those days of traveling around in a van and being fanatical book distributors were probably the best days of my life, actually.
Yes. Yes. This is a point I didn't get to touch on, that you have no idea how valuable this experience is for your future. That you will draw on this experience and it will become the, what do we call it, the baseline by which you can measure everything that follows.
Yeah, life was so simple. You know, you don't have any worries about your maintenance or maintaining a house or, you know, family. Everything's very simple. So maybe we'll probably get married, who knows? But just appreciate what you have and try to do it for, you know, at least 5, 10 years. And it will stand you in good stead. It will make you. And, you know, challenges, as Prabhu was saying, but this will give you a for which we're always anxious. And the nectar's limited. And as you get older, you appreciate it more and more, that there's so much nectar in Krishna consciousness, and we just have to know how to find it. But it's there. And this is the most wonderful way of life and philosophy, and it's unlimited. The knowledge and the bliss is unlimited. So keep going. Hare Krishna.
Daneshwar Prabhu wanted to say something.
Thank you, Prabhu, for taking me back down memory lane. That was wonderful. Yeah, I just want, you know, it's, you're talking about our enthusiasm, and it was a Vietnam era in America. That was an important thing. And there's a lot of young people protesting. And where to protest? I went on one protest, and it was like, you know, you feel like, what am I doing here? This doesn't accomplish anything. And then I read Prabhupada's books, and Prabhupada was telling us, if you want to change the world, you have to change consciousness. And so I joined in '73, and in those days, we were in a war with Maya. I don't remember where that expression came from.
Came from Prabhupada.
Came from Prabhupada?
Yeah.
We were in a war with Maya, and our ammunition was these books and Harinam, Sankirtana, spreading the holy name around. And we were convinced that we were going to change the world. And so we acted on that enthusiasm every day. It was, like you said, it was palpable. You know, we were determined, you know, by our actions, somehow or other, because Krishna and Prabhupada can do anything, we were determined that we were going to see it. And so that's the enthusiasm that we had. It was wonderful. It was a really wonderful time to be present. Now, what I wanted to really extend from this is that everybody can see that the world's in grave shape, right? There's so many people, not anybody. They're saying we're in a war between good and evil. And so we need the help of God. And, right, so how do we get the help of God? We ask people, please chant this holy name, right? The Maha Mantra. Right? This is Krishna incarnated. Krishna is fully present in the sound of his holy name and can act just as he acted in any of his pastimes. And have very complete faith in that. And not only give the books, I don't know if you give out mantra cards anymore. We used to give out mantra cards. Please do that. And ask everybody to recite the Maha Mantra after you give them the book. Please recite this mantra and say this prayer every day and share it around. Ask everybody else to do it because we need the help of God now. So, you know, we were all young adults, single adults at that time. We had a lot of energy, just like a young man. It's so nice to see you can jump around like we used to be able to. And so use that energy that you have right now to save. Nice. Prabhupada I want that history will record that this movement saved the world in its darkest hour. And it seems like that's pretty close. So please continue with great enthusiasm. And you We should all make it our own personal responsibility. I'm going to do whatever I can to save the world. And, usually we think, who, me? Who am I? Well, we can be an instrument of Krishna. So he can act through us, right? The powerhouse, just plug ourselves in, and Krishna can come. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Thank you. Brigupati, you want to add something? Actually, we have changed the world. It's just that it's not complete yet. Still, we have to work.
Yep, thank you. It was really wonderful. It was interesting from the first words coming out of your mouth till the end. And at one point in your talk, you said, I hope this is not being recorded. And I just hope you're wrong. I hope it was recorded, because I think not only the devotees who are here right now, but I think other devotees would benefit immensely if they had the opportunity to hear what you were saying this afternoon. So thank you very much. It was really wonderful. Thank you.
Transcendental adventure. Anyone else want to say something, or any questions? Yeah.
So you're mentioning all these austerities that you wanted to talk on the Radha Damodar party, bathing in freezing cold weather, and then going out 12 hours, and then having very little prasadam to eat during the day. And it's like almost universal throughout the movement, from what I've heard from different Prabhupada disciples. So why, like, as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, did you never think, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Why did you have the conviction to continue doing it and not give it up?
Good question. I had a difficulty. It was very difficult for me, actually. But I always had that strong conviction from the very start. Even before joining ISKCON, as I said, I was looking for a place to repose my faith. I just couldn't find a worthy institution or church that was free of the hypocrisy until I read Prabhupada's books. And of course, Krishna is all attractive. And that was my goal. As soon as first time when I walked in the temple in Los Angeles and saw Shri Shri Rukmini Dwarkadish, nobody had to teach me to bow down. I just did it spontaneously. So, that was for me. Maybe somebody else maybe had a different story or a different background, but somehow or other, I can't be alone in that. There has to be other people out there who are just waiting for you to come and give them the access by which they can achieve their highest aspiration. I'm sure they're there, because as Prabhuji said, things are polarizing now. It is a fact. And Kali Yuga is getting very, very heavy, and a lot of people are dissatisfied. I'm sure you know this. You meet them every day. They're looking for something. Well, who's giving it to them? It's just like I was telling someone this morning. I preach a lot in Tamil Nadu. So we went to one village way out in the middle of nowhere, not exactly, but a far, far away place. Satangulam, Tamil Nadu. And we went to one Devi temple. We had a program there. But there was a big Christian mission next door, and this Christian mission was broadcasting all kinds of Christian propaganda through the loudspeaker. So we could hardly get off the ground, until someone just somehow gave them prasadam or something. I don't know how they got them to turn it off, but they finally did. Then we were able to put our program through the PA system, and the village was, small enough, and Indian society is such that people tolerate that kind of thing. Anything religious broadcasted, they're okay with it still. And so that's what we were doing. We started out with a curious crowd of villagers, maybe 30, 40 people. They were mostly curious. What is this? Let me see. But, since the whole village was hearing this through the course of the program, they were trickling in. By the time we finished, the crowd had swelled to 300 or 400 people, and they were tuned in, completely focused, because they had never heard anything like the things that we were saying. One man came up to me and he said, we're Hindus, we want to be Hindus, but we don't know what it means to be a Hindu. We think it means you come to the temple and you eat pongal and then you go home. That's all they've ever been told. So in a similar kind of a way, there are people in this country, and in every country, Jiva is constantly thirsting after the nectar of Krishna's lotus feet. They just don't know it yet. But that person who can come and illumine their hearts with the shining lamp of knowledge that is the Srimad Bhagavatam, that person will go back to Godhead, and he will take this recipient with him. You should rest assured of that. There are so many of them out there. They're just waiting for you to give them the books. They're just waiting. And the fact that you're all here now means that's true, because every one of you was one such person, I would imagine, and to a greater or lesser extent. So I don't know. I hope that's okay. I can just share my own experience. Anything else? Yes.
We are really inspired by Tamal Krishna Maharaj's approach to convincing just people, random people out on the street about Krishna consciousness. The experience we're having also is that we're able to break through all of their nonsense and smash their philosophy. But when it comes time to actually doing something, there seems to be like, is it different from when it was in the 70s, where people more, like when they got defeated, they were more inclined to surrender to that? But it seems like people are very cowardly nowadays. They're just, okay, I got defeated, but I don't care, sort of.
There's some truth in that, yeah. I think so. Unfortunately, every generation has a little bit less sattva guna than the previous generation, a little less karma, a little less gyan. So that's just the unfortunate reality of the Kali Yuga. But this is our mission. This is our task. This is what we've been given. We have to deal with it. And it's not like it wasn't austere before. We had similar challenges, insurmountable challenges, as I told you in the beginning. Just to be a vegetarian was radical in 1975. It was radical. A doctor would even tell you, you'll starve if you don't eat meat. Medical doctors, degreed doctors, professionals, they would say this. The ignorance was so thick. And, there were so many. You couldn't go to India without, inhaling secondhand smoke for the 24 hours that your flight took. Can you imagine how hellish that is? Because, we had to fight against these things. I think it's largely because of the distribution of Prabhupada's books that these things have changed. People now accept reincarnation. Previously they thought it was only crackpots believe in that stuff. Now everybody believes. Srila Prabhupada, when he first voiced doubts about the moon mission, Apollo, people thought it was crazy. Even devotees, Purushottam left because of that. And nowadays, nobody believes anybody went to the moon. So, these things change. And they change by book distribution. They change by Sankirtan. They change by prasadam. These were Srila Prabhupada's 3 prongs. The material energy has her 3 prongs, right? The Tapatraya. We also have our 3 prongs. That is kirtan, books, prasadam. Give these out en masse, unlimitedly, ever increasingly, and this world will continue to change as it has been changing since 1965. There's no doubt about it. Nimittamatra bhava savyasachi. As Krishna told Arjuna, just you have only to be the instrument. It's going to happen. If you don't do it, I told Mahotsaha this morning, if you don't break your own record, somebody else will break it. So what do you want? It's up to you. Yatechasi tathakuru. So, you just have to step up to the plate and demonstrate that you're willing, and then you will be empowered in ways that you can't even imagine, just as Vasudeva was empowered. Who could write that script? Did he read the plot? No. Neither Prahlad Maharaj knew how the story was going to end. All he knew is that my father's trying to kill me in so many ways. You think that's easy to deal with? We have so many challenges now, but we had so many challenges then. That doesn't change because Krishna is the one orchestrating all of them. Not a blade of grass waves in the breeze here without his sanction. So don't think that, it's 2023, people are too fallen, I'm also too fallen. Don't think like that. This is an eternal thing. And as long as anybody's willing to surrender, Krishna will empower them. And it will happen. And Krishna will even use that person as an instrument. Why does he say, Aveshyatam no matirapi ahaitaki? I mentioned already. Even Prahlad is thinking himself a demon. That's amazing enough. But even if we accept that, we're demons, but he's saying that just to illustrate to us, yes, you may be a demon, but even you can become Krishna conscious, and you can spread Krishna consciousness also. That's the really amazing thing. This is the Leela. of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and it's amazing. We have a golden opportunity to take to take part in the mission of the golden avatar. Should not lose it. Jabalagataname tapana vyape tabalagakari hari seva, one poet said. As long as we, like you all, are young, exuberant, intelligent, bright-faced, as Prabhupada used to say, everybody here is bright-faced. If you don't have the adhikar, who does? Every generation has the recipients of Mahaprabhu's mercy, those who have chosen to represent him to the world. If we're not going to do this, nobody else is going to do it. We have to do our part. So I just bow my head at all of your lotus feet and beg you to please remember me if I've said anything that can be of any inspiration to you. When you go back to Godhead and take so many others with you, just remind them that, he tried to encourage us a little bit. So be kind to him also. Okay? Is that helpful? No. All right. Maybe then Vishnu Chitta is still not here, so I don't know what to do. I think it's time for prasadam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to Sri Radha Damodar. All glories to the Sankirtana devotees of Krishna life. Hare Krishna.